We see the finish line in sight. The Montreal Canadiens only have a handful of games before the playoffs begin. I didn't grow this playoff beard for nothing. Would you rather see them play against the Edmonton Oilers, though, or the Toronto Maple Leafs? We'll tackle that topic and more on this week's edition of Hockey Inside Out. Julian McKenzie right back at it for another edition of Hockey Inside Out with the usual suspects alongside me, Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette, Jessica Rusnak of CBC Daybreak Montreal, Rick Green, formerly of the Montreal Canadiens as a player, formerly an assistant coach as well. The first topic we'd like to discuss is Cole Caufield. We've seen him play. We've seen the overtime winners. I don't know if I have to eat crow as the guy who said he deserves more time in the AHL, but hey, he has 2 goals to his tally. They're both winners. What do you guys think of Cole Caufield?
Well, I think he brought some really fun excitement to the Montreal Canadiens fan base over the last few days or so. Those 2 back-to-back overtime winners is something written out of a Hollywood movie, the nickname Cole Caufield coming out. So far, it's been good for him to get those kind of goals. That's something that he's known for. 5-on-5, he hasn't had the same kind of success, but he's still young. He's still learning. He's very, very fresh in his NHL career. I think it's a good step in the right direction for him. I do like that he's playing on a line with Josh Anderson and Philip Deneau. I think that gives him the best possibility of succeeding, because if you're going to have one of these young kids up who's a goal scorer and you want them to be able to continue to develop, you don't want to put them with players that won't be able to help them out. So I think that's a great spot for him. And so far, it's been good. It brought a lot of excitement. People who don't watch hockey all of a sudden know who Cole Caufield is. So that's always a good thing.
I think it's so great to see a young kid like this smile so much and really, really bring excitement to the group and to the overall game. And I mean, his performance hasn't changed, from what he's used to playing at all levels with his speed and his shot. My goodness, we're going to see a lot of damage done when he, continues to develop at the NHL level. But, I got to really give him full marks for the way he's handled himself. And it's just a real nice look to see a guy like that that's excited to be part of the Montreal Canadiens and is going to have some success, each and every game. And he's a kind of player that I like to see him with somebody that can get him the puck, maybe get in the corners, because he's quick enough to get into those soft areas where he's going to have opportunity. And we've seen it in the previous games. He does have chances to score. He's pretty slippery, and he knows, like at the Foley, where to go, when to go, and he's going to do some damage. I think if we can find a way for somebody to find, him to get the puck, and just a great kid, and really happy for him, and handled himself very, very well.
Yeah, it's fun to see a young kid having so much fun playing in the NHL, living his dream. And what a start with those 2 overtime goals. That smile was priceless. It reminds me of Jesperi Kotkaniemi when he first came up with the big smile. Those 2 overtime goals showed you exactly what Cole Caufield is, his ability to find open ice and his ability to shoot the puck. On both of those goals, Jeff Petrie carried the puck along the boards, waiting for Caufield to get open. He did, and when he does get open, he knows how to shoot. The second one, Armia was screening the goalie, and where so many guys would just fire the puck at the net and maybe hit the guy screening the goalie, he looked up, saw where the open spot was, and put the puck there, and he scored. The thing, I've noticed is just how small he is, which isn't a surprise. Yeah. But he really looks small on the NHL ice. And there's periods where you don't notice him. I know the game against Ottawa the other night, like second period, I was like, oh yeah, Cole Caufield's playing type of thing. He sort of disappeared. But having said that, if he does get an open chance and he gets the puck, he's going to put it in the net. As far as who should play with it, I think Suzuki should be playing with him, just who can find him and find him in that open ice. And I'd like to see him with Toffoli. I'd like to see the Canadiens stack a line with those 3 guys. Toffoli's also a really smart player. Suzuki's a really smart player. And I think not only could Caufield learn a lot playing with them, I think they would help him and get the puck to him when he finds that open ice. But, it's going to be there's going to be some growing pains along the way. As I said, there's periods where you don't notice him. Dominic Ducharme had benched him for the last 9 minutes of the third period in that first game when he scored the overtime goal. But kudos to Ducharme that he still had faith in throwing the kid on the ice in overtime, and it paid off.
I like the idea of putting Caufield with two of the team's best offensive players. I'm just curious, though, and I'm glad you brought it up. There have been some moments where, if Cole Caufield is not getting a high danger chance in the net, he is kind of just not necessarily visible. Or I did have that same feeling that you had against Ottawa, where, I see Cole Caufield just show up on TV. I'm like, oh, yeah, right. Like, he's playing. Rick, maybe you can answer this better than anyone here. What do you think Cole Caufield still needs to develop beyond his goal-scoring attributes to really stick in the NHL?
Well, as a winger, the unfortunate part of the game is you get a lot more, bodies coming at you with pinches and stuff like that. And, here's a kid that's going to have to be very quick and very aware. And thank goodness he has that, because his size is going to hurt a little bit when it comes to battling on the wall. But I really believe that, this type of skill set that he has and his intelligence, I think he can adapt his game to be effective. I know if you watch a few of the games, you can see that on occasion along the boards, he had a little bit of difficulty. But again, we have to understand that this kid is still learning the NHL levels of play, and he's going to make his adjustments and become a better player with time. But I think he has to really, work on his board play so that he can be, can be effective and, not to hurt the team in any way by losing any battles. And I'm confident to believe that he will make the necessary adjustments to be effective on the wall.
Let's move on to the Ottawa Senators, who, as far as I know, I don't think the Canadiens have to see them anymore. Jeez. Canadiens, just for whatever reason, against the Ottawa Senators, they could not get it done. A 3-6-1 record against this team. And while we like to rave about the prospects in the Canadian system and the way the team looks, there's some pretty good players on the Ottawa side. I ask you, panelists, which team over the next few years do you think has a brighter future? The Montreal Canadiens or the Ottawa Senators?
Ottawa. Disregarding, their winning record against the Canadiens. I mean, if you look at their personnel with Tkachuk 17 goals, they got Norris, they got Brown, they have Batherson. They've got some guys that are really fun to watch, and they've got great skill and speed and work ethic. And these young kids are really determined to make a difference. And, they are really impressing me as far as how they've handled themselves and how their team game is. And, it's really, promising for the Ottawa Senators moving forward to see that type of talent pool and more guys coming that are going to make them a real tough team to play against. And, they've done a really good job in the rebuild there and have been able to find real good quality guys that are able to play and contribute on a consistent basis. And if you look at their record as of late, they've been one of the most consistent teams in the league, and they are getting the results because they are good, they are hardworking and disciplined in all areas of their game, and really compliments to their organization for fine-tuning some of those young kids at a real early age.
Well, by far the Ottawa Senators, Rick, I agree with you. I mean, I don't even think it's close. They started the season 1-8-1 largely because Matt Murray in net was just horrible. He couldn't stop anything. If they go even 500 over those first 10 games, they're battling the Canadiens or even ahead of the Canadiens for that playoff spot. You look at their top players: Brady Tkachuk, Drake Batherson, Josh Norris, Thomas Chabot, Tim Stützle. The oldest guy is Chabot at 24. And these guys, they remind me a little bit of the young Edmonton Oilers. Boys on the bus who grew up together, came up together, a bunch of single guys hanging out. Tkachuk and Stützle live together. They're growing up on and off the ice, and they compete every single night. I mentioned that 1-8-1 start. It would have been easy to pack it in, but kudos to their coaching staff. They come to play every night. They work hard. Their record against Canadiens is so impressive, but they've given every team a fight every night. Brady Tkachuk is going to be a superstar in this league, and the Senators don't.
Wow.
The Senators don't have almost $20 million over the next 5 years tied up in an old injury-prone goalie and an old injury-prone defenseman like the Canadiens do with Carey Price and Shea Weber. So there's a lot of youth. They have salary cap room to grow. The Senators are in a much better spot right now moving forward than the Canadiens. And having said that, the Canadiens, it looks like they're going to be in the playoffs this year. They better go on a good run because it's going to get even more difficult when we go back to the regular divisions next season. They're going to have a hard time making the playoffs.
Yeah, the Ottawa Senators have been such a fun team to watch, and it was kind of coming into this season with them having nothing to lose. No one thought that they were going to go and make the playoffs. They were in a rebuilding phase, and so far they've shown that this is a team in the future that it will be in the playoffs. And they're an exciting team to watch. As you mentioned, they have so many players, young depth that's going to help them going forward. And they're the team, I would say, that really derailed the Montreal Canadiens. Remember that hot start that they had? Then they faced the Ottawa Senators, and the Senators didn't give them an easy time. And then that started to continue to be the trend going forward. But this is a team to watch, and I think it's been a long time since the Ottawa Senators have been a team that you would say, hey, I want to buy tickets to that game to go and watch these young players. And as you mentioned, Stu, very similar to the Edmonton Oilers, when they would come to town, you would want to come see these young players play.
Yeah, and Cole Caufield, we're talking about how much fun he's having. The whole Senators team is like that. All these young kids just living their dream and having fun in the NHL and working hard every single game and making it difficult. And they have a good mix of skill and grit and goal scoring. Shabbat on the blue line is the stud. Kachuk, here's a guy who's number 1 or 2 in the NHL in shots and hits. That's remarkable. This is a really, really good young hockey team.
And everybody that comes over that bench has speed. I mean, no matter who they throw out there, they're coming at you. And I mean, they exposed the Canadiens on a number of times just by their aggressive forecheck and getting to the pucks first. And, the Canadiens, I'm going to assume we're trying to get there, but Ottawa really took full advantage of some of the slow feet, if you will, of a few of the guys in the defensive zone. And they made things really difficult for the Canadiens in a lot of areas. And anyways, what can we say other than bigger and better things to come with a really young group of real exciting players?
You know who didn't look out of place with all that speed with the Ottawa Senators? Victor Mete, who logged himself some ice time against the Montreal Canadiens. And I'm also glad you mentioned the coaching staffs too, because I think DJ Smith deserves a lot of credit with what he's done with this team. Sportsnet had put up a graphic during the broadcast Wednesday night. I believe the Senators have accumulated the 3rd most points of any team in the North Division since February 12th. This is a team that played with nothing to lose for most of the year, and they ended up being, well, I can't say the actual word, so I'll say disturbers with so many teams in the North Division. The Montreal Canadiens, we can look at their record. The Toronto Maple Leafs as well. I mean, yes, the Maple Leafs may have a winning record against the Senators, but we're going to look back at that comeback win from the Senators over the Leafs as one of the defining moments of that core season. I think if you're Brady Tkachuk or Tim Stützle or any of those guys, even if you miss the playoffs, you can look back at that year and consider it as a success. You obviously have to surpass whatever expectations were set from this year, but the Senators look pretty good. But I am also surprised that it is kind of unanimous in terms of the fact that the Senators do have a brighter future. Not that you guys are wrong, but the Canadiens still have a really good prospect pool, right? They still have some good goaltending behind them with Caden Primo potentially waiting in the wings. He looks pretty good. And Nick Suzuki's started to play really well, and they still have some really good young players to look at as well, and Cole Caufield as well. I think maybe it's just the fact that the veterans' contracts are in the way, like a Shea Weber or Carey Price. That's probably the biggest reason why. But I mean, it's not to say that there isn't some good to look at with the Montreal Canadiens as well. I am just surprised at the fact that it's just completely unanimous among everybody that the Ottawa Senators have a brighter future. But again, you're not wrong. I'm just surprised at the fact that everyone unanimously, again, using that word, said the Ottawa Senators. Anyway, let's move on to the Montreal Canadiens, the brief winning streak that they had. For the 3rd time this year, they went on a 3-game winning streak. We made a big deal about the winning start that they had at the beginning of the year. The longest winning streak they had was 3 games. Dominic Ducharme can say he's had 2 3-game winning streaks, one more than Claude Julien had. But at least on this latest winning streak that the team did have, there were a lot of players missing from this lineup. What do you think was the reason the Canadiens were able to get as much success as they did, despite the fact that they were missing guys like Carey Price and Shea Weber? Brendan Gallagher, we're not going to see him for a bit too. Jonathan Drouin, we spoke about him and what he's been going through. A lot of bodies missing on this Canadiens team, but they were still able to string together all these wins. Wow.
I think the bodies missing played into the winning streak, because I think you had a lot of guys. We're talking about the Senators proving themselves. You had a lot. Jake Evans played the best hockey he's played over those 3 games. You had a lot of guys in the lineup playing for their futures, whether it be in Montreal or elsewhere. When you look at the veterans, the Corey Perrys and guys like that, I think it was. I don't want to say a breath of fresh air, but I think it was a different vibe in the locker room when you take out Price and Weber and the veteran leaders. I think maybe it's a little bit less weight on guys, or maybe just a fresh, younger approach maybe. And no, those guys take up a lot of oxygen in the room. And I think there was just a bunch of guys who had something to prove, came out and sort of like the Ottawa Senators, played hard, worked hard, skated hard, had their opportunity to show what they could do. And they made the most of it. And I'm not surprised that they lost that game against the Senators, not only because of the Senators' record, but I think just sort of an emotional letdown maybe. The 2 overtime wins, the fact that they basically clinched the playoff spot. I think they took a deep breath, and I wasn't surprised. Before that game, I had a feeling the Senators would win, just because I thought the Canadiens would have a bit of a letdown. But I think it's just a chance, a lot of guys getting a chance to prove what they can do moving forward, and they took advantage of it.
Well, that's just it in sports. When a player gets injured, it's the next guy up. And this is your opportunity to show what you can bring and why you should be someone that should stay in the lineup. And I think that players realized that and they took advantage of it. And I'm sure that big comeback from behind win against the Winnipeg Jets that kind of kicked this off also helped the confidence of this team. And I'll be honest, I changed that game and watched the movie because I did not think that they were going to come back. And then when I checked the score before going to bed, I couldn't believe it. And then I think that was a trickle-down effect, because when they were down again the next game, they weren't panicking. They've been in a situation like that, and they were able to find a way to win. And then the same thing happened again against Toronto. But it was just unfortunate, the game against Ottawa. They seemed to run out of gas there. They weren't able to figure out a way to get themselves back into the game, and it just kind of spiraled out of there. But I feel like this team has struggled to finding that consistent play all season long. And hopefully now that it's getting close to the end of the season, they don't let a few games slip away from them, that they're able to regain that momentum that they were able to get over those 3 games.
And I think that, a couple of areas that they excelled in, and I can't say enough about goaltending. Jake Allen standing in there, and I saw a number of breakdowns defensively where basically he was left alone, whether it's a 2-on-1 or a breakaway. And this guy made a timely save to allow the Canadiens to stay in the game. And, if they don't get that, they obviously don't win. And I have to commend him for doing such a great job in doing his role in helping the team win. And I also have to mention Petrie, who was quiet for a period of time. We were a little concerned about all of a sudden his game had completely changed. And then all of a sudden now the switch has been turned on, and he's got to understand exactly how to play his A game again. And, you see him involved in a lot of the plays offensively, and obviously creating chances for his forwards. And, if the Canadiens are going to continue to win, they're going to have to call on him and some of the other guys to jump in there on the right times to help out on the offensive side of things. And they're capable of doing it. And I think we've seen it in the past. So now they have to find a way to, put that back into the game and give them a chance to win each night.
We were talking earlier about the players missing. For whatever reason, Jeff Petrie plays his best hockey when Shea Weber's not in the lineup. He's just outstanding. He's been outstanding the last few games. It's like I don't know if he takes on the challenge of being the number 1 guy out there or what it is, but he's a much, much better player when Shea Weber's out of the lineup for whatever reason. And Rick, as you said, how many breakaways has Jake Allen stopped this season? It's how many? It's incredible. Like he's a battler, as I've said before. He's like Brendan Gallagher in goalie pads. He works so hard, doesn't give up, and he's kept this team and given this team a chance to win every single game he's played. But the breakaways, they need to go back through the highlights and figure out how many breakaway saves he's made this season, because it's a lot.
Yeah, they had a candidate for save of the season earlier this week. I'm surprised not as many people brought that up on the Twitter timeline, at least. I think maybe it was just because we were all focused on some other game where 2 teams were just beating each other up for no damn reason. Anyway, and also, Jess, I'm not going to get mad at you for watching a movie instead of watching a Canadiens game. After the I think the 5th goal the Senators scored, I just turned on my Nintendo Switch. I just played video games for the end of the night. Don't act like you haven't done that before. Switch off a Canadiens game. to go, watch something else. In a previous video, I believe it was a bonus one, I think we were talking about Canadiens' disappointment players who've disappointed over this course of the season. And I mentioned Nick Suzuki's name, and I mentioned his name as he was in the middle of a lull, because it looked as if, he wasn't producing as much as we had expected him to. The face-offs were a point that kind of maligned him for a good chunk of the year. Now he's on a point where he had a long point streak where he's putting up points with the Canadiens, and he's looked like that dynamic player that we've expected him to be. And now I'm wondering if my criticism of him was kind of clouded with the way the team was playing. So there I go, eating my words again. I'm sure it's not going to be the last time that's going to happen. When it comes to Nick Suzuki, what do you think has been the biggest key with him picking up his game as of late?
Well, I think the thing with young centers is that you're going to have these peaks and valleys, that they're not just going to play a consistent game the whole season. It's a difficult position to learn, and sometimes it's going to go well and other times it won't go well. I think also having Tyler Toffoli, perhaps that's helped him. They have got good chemistry together. He's a great player to look up to and work with. But I also do think that he's been stronger with the puck, that he's been able to hold on to it more. He hasn't lost it as much, and then probably having a little bit of confidence go into it. I liked after the game when him and Cole Caufield kind of did that duo Zoom press conference, having a little bit of fun there. And it shows when things are going well, they're feeling good about themselves, and on the ice as well. I think he has a little bit more confidence when he's out there, and he's been able to, set up some good goals. And it's great that he's been able to pick up his game now.
And from my understanding, I think Dominic Ducharme had a little conversation with him and whispered in his ear, said, "We need more from you. We need more intensity. We need you to bring more in your overall game." And he has responded, obviously, quite well. And, just you mentioned about Toffoli. Those two guys are really good together, and they seem to feed off each other and get to those areas that allow them chances for. And it's a long year. They do have their ups and downs. Suzuki again is a young guy, but the way he's playing as of late, you got to give him full marks. He understands that he has to get involved. He has to make things happen, and he's working hard, and the results are happening because of that. So full marks for him.
Yeah, Ricky mentioned that conversations that Ducharme had with him. And Ducharme's message was basically, stop thinking so much. Just go out and compete. Nick Suzuki's such a smart hockey player. His hockey IQ is so high that he was just probably thinking too much on this, thinking about what he was going to do instead of just doing it, letting it come naturally. And I think that's the message that Ducharme was trying to drive home to him. Just go out there and compete. Your brain's going to figure out what you need to do as you go along, instead of trying to think before what you're going to do. Just go out and do it. And he's been able to do that. And he looks, people talk about confidence, and it is so important. His confidence seems to be coming back. He's hanging on to the puck a little bit longer than he was before. He also seems more confident in the board battles, battling harder for the puck and taking the hits better. So I think Ducharme, kudos to Ducharme for talking to him about it and just saying, stop thinking so much. Just go out and play the game. Your hockey IQ is going to figure stuff out as you go along, but put that down on your order of priorities. Your number one priority is to compete when you're on the ice, and then everything else will follow after that.
Yeah, I think with Nick Suzuki, as he develops into a true top, well, I mean, he's already a true top six center, but as he gets better and better and better, I know we like to say that when Jeff Petry's on his game, the team kind of goes with him. I feel they're going to say that with Nick Suzuki as well. I find it's pretty clear when he's able to put up points and he's able to set up plays, whether it's goals or provide assists, the team does well when he does that. So we'll just have to see with Nick Suzuki, who is clearly not a disappointment for the Montreal Canadiens. To our final question. Oh, go ahead.
Does he need to improve his face-offs, though?
Yeah, the face-offs, buddy. It's not looking too good. It's not looking too good for Nick Suzuki there. He'll get better at that, I'm sure. Our final question. The Montreal Canadiens, it looks as if they're going to make the playoffs. I put out a poll question a few days ago asking fans, which team would they rather see the Canadiens play in the first round of the playoffs? It looked as if we were projecting a Canadiens Maple Leafs first round, which I think we'd all want because of the rivalry, but the Canadiens as of now are still within striking distance of third place. So they could put themselves in a position where they get the Edmonton Oilers. And in that poll question, an overwhelming amount of people said they'd rather see the Canadiens play the Oilers as opposed to the mighty Toronto Maple Leafs. So I ask you three, would you rather see the Canadiens play the Oilers in the first round of the playoffs or the Toronto Maple Leafs?
You can't work any magic to try and shift the matchups other than those two teams, can you? No, right?
No, I can't. Sorry.
You know, McDavid, Draisaitl, Marner, Matthews. Hey, they'll have their hands full with either one. But you know what? I like the opportunity if it presents itself against Toronto, which it looks like it's going to happen. And they can cause a lot of problems with Toronto's defense. I don't think their defense, as much as they've been really, I think, overachieving, and they've been effective, obviously, to get them where they are. But I really question with Montreal, if they come at Toronto and force their defense, they can cause a lot of havoc and create some stuff offensively. So I would like to see them, line up against Toronto. I think that Toronto has a tendency to not find ways to win in the playoffs. Hopefully that will continue. And, the Canadiens obviously will have a couple of games to tune up and see just what exactly they can do. And hopefully their mindset is, okay, this is playoffs early. Let's send some messages and let the opposition Maple Leafs know that they're in for a tough goal. And, hopefully all this being said, they can find a way to get some of their injured players back and feel healthy going into the playoff stretch, which obviously is a huge part of success of any hockey team.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Canadiens play the Leafs. I mean, it's just, I think most hockey fans would. 1979, the last time they met in the playoffs. I was in high school. I had long blonde hair.
Stu, every opportunity he
Rick,
gets likes to bring up the fact he had hair.
So I'd love to see them play the Leafs, but I think they have a better chance against the Oilers for a couple of reasons. The Leafs are a better team, top to bottom, than the Oilers are. And secondly, the Canadiens and Philip Deneau have shown an ability to be able to shut down Connor McDavid. And, as Connor McDavid goes, the Oilers go. So I think they have a better chance of beating the Oilers. I think the Leafs, as Rick mentioned, their goaltending is a question mark again. But they have a lot of veteran leadership on that team that they picked up, Joe Thornton and Simmons and those guys. So I think for the Canadiens, their chances of winning are better against Edmonton, but I'd really like to see a Toronto-Montreal playoff series. Too bad there won't be any fans in the rinks, but I think it would be pretty awesome.
I think that's the worst, that if it does go Montreal, Toronto, not even just fans of the rink, fans just making the drive from either city, packing bars, seeing people on the streets. So that whole thing will really be missed if that is the matchup. Now, even though the Montreal Canadiens have had success against Edmonton, especially being able to shut down McDavid and Draisaitl, I just feel like once it comes to the playoffs that Connor McDavid is going to be a man on a mission, and he's going to bring his teammates with him. I just feel like there's this drive from him that he's not going to want a first round exit, and he's going to be able to elevate his game. So because of that, I think that if the Canadiens do play the Toronto Maple Leafs, that might be the series that they could be able to win. As you mentioned, Rick, that Toronto has trouble when it comes to the playoffs. And maybe if they win a few games, the Canadiens, the momentum switches and then the pressure's on them and they might end up collapsing. But either way, it would be a good matchup. But I think that Montreal would have the better chance winning against Toronto.
For what it's worth, last two games against the Edmonton Oilers, McDavid has picked up 3 points in each of those games. I know he had the lull against the Canadiens in the early parts of the year, but those last two games, he seemed to have switched a whole other gear. And there's a very good chance by the time we do our episode next week, McDavid will have either reached the 100-point plateau or literally be within striking distance of that. He is clearly on another mode right now. There's no doubt he's going to be the Hart Trophy winner. You can book that right now. And I'm with you, Jess. Like, this year of all years, I think he definitely wants to see some playoff success. He's in Edmonton, where they've been teetering between mediocre and bad for way too long for his liking. Leon Draisaitl knows the same feeling as well. Mike Smith, I didn't think he'd be that good goaltender for them, but he's held them up on so many occasions this year. The Edmonton Oilers, that's another team in the North Division who they've applied pressure upon themselves to see some success. So I'm not sure which of the two teams the Canadiens will see more success with, but I am a bit surprised that a lot of people think that Edmonton is just going to be this easy matchup. I mean, they're going to go up against two of the best players in the world, and Connor McDavid is on another level right now. It's just a bit insane.
Matthews and Marner, though, with Toronto also. I mean, I think of that goal that Matthews scored against the Canadiens, that deflection in front of the net. Poor Edmondson. He did everything perfect. He got him behind the net. He roughed him up in front of the net. He was all over him, and Matthews was able to get his stick up and deflect it in. So that's, pick your poison, Austin Matthews and the Mitch Marner or Connor McDavid and the Oilers. Either way, it's going to be tough.
Hopefully it's fun at least, right? I mean,
at
the end of the day, if, even if the Canadiens lose, which I know would make a lot of people unhappy, and maybe there could be changes after that, who knows? If it's entertaining, then I know for me as someone who likes to watch hockey, I will be at least entertained. And hopefully everyone else will too. That'll do it for this week's edition of Hockey Inside Out. If you have a question that you'd like to see us talk about on the show, leave it in the comment section below. Maybe you have a question about, what did Stu Cowan look like back in 1979? I'm sure we'd all love to see it. And also, if you want to see more content, visit hockeyinsideout.com for more.